it could change the next day. Like, you have to be flexible, and you have to say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to try. And if I fail, I'm going to keep trying, or I'm going to change something about it, and I'm going to adjust. And I think being a little more flexible on life, and like, there's disasters that happen all the time. There's like weird stuff happening with our planet right now, and life is very, very short. And I think just going with the flow and just doing it. Just have an idea, try it out. I think part of it is like I have FOMO, so fear of missing out. It's a serious disease. I really think it's serious. And I never ever want to look back in life when I'm 100, because I will live to 100. I'm determined. I don't want to look back and say, like, man, I really regret not trying. Like, I really wish I had started something, had it fail if it had to fail, but look back and knowing that I had tried. Like, I really want to make sure that everyone who's listening to this, like, if you have an idea, try it out.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Our guest for episode 2 of the Amani Experience Podcast is Gabrielle Norton. She's the founder and lead planner at Cause We Can Events. They're a wedding planning company for adventurous and outdoorsy couples. Now, Gabby, which we call her, she started her company in 2012 in the hopes of producing events for causes. That's where the name came from. Very clever. She worked for a few nonprofits, planned some yoga festivals and wonderful dinner galas, but really kept feeling herself being pulled more towards weddings. She loved the idea of being in nature and celebrating love under the stars. So that's where she started specializing in adventurous outdoor destination style weddings for couples who love to travel, wander, and get inspired by nature. She still manages to stay involved with nonprofits, and she donates as much as she can by, maybe donating 10% of proceeds of her time after every event, which is very admirable and very aligned with how we feel about nonprofits and donating back to the community. Gabby was born and raised in beautiful Montreal, Canada, so she was surrounded by nature's beauty early on. She moved to the West Coast to Manhattan Beach, California in 2010 and founded Cause We Can Events shortly after. Most recently, her and her husband, Gabby is newly married. Her husband, Chris, they decided to skip the house buying step in life and opted to get a boat instead. So they live on a 42-foot trawler in San Pedro, California. They love it. We'll talk to her about that later in the episode. We had a really cool conversation. She gave some great advice to kind of what we go through in the industry. So without any further ado, let's get to our episode. All right, welcome back to the show. So happy to have Gabby here with us. Welcome, Gabby. Why don't you kind of share your story from the time period where you finished school to where we are right now?
Hey, Amani, nice to see you. Gosh, seems like decades ago, but it's not. So actually, my kind of whole story started in college, and I was in marketing at the University of Ottawa, so I'm Canadian, if you didn't know. But
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, I do. And I was actually volunteering to do this marketing gala for one of our classes, and the whole idea was to put together this kind of program portion of an event and then follow it up by a dinner and reception portion where we present some awards and stuff like that. And I volunteered to do the planning of it, not knowing anything about it and or how to do it. And basically it was chaos. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I didn't have a life, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I said, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to plan events. And that's all I knew, events. So here we are, 7 years later. And I moved out to Southern California and kind of went through a transition of starting with social events and then nonprofit events. And eventually made my way into finding this like very specific niche of wedding planning that I like to call kind of wedding planning for adventurous and wandering, kind of people. So people who like to travel, backpackers, yogis, people who crave nature and outdoorsy events. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now in my life. Yeah.
All right. And so you grew up in Canada, Montreal?
Montreal, to be exact. The French side of Montreal, too. So I did actually grow up speaking French and went to school in French. My mom's fully French, and my dad is actually American. So spoke English with him.
Nice. So what's the difference between living in Montreal to living in like the South Bay, Los Angeles, Manhattan Beach, San Pedro?
Ooh, that's a great question. Very different. Let's be honest, the first thing is climate. You
True.
cannot beat Southern California winters. They're amazing. But the Montreal, the part of Montreal I grew up in is very small town, cozy, and I think the South Bay is very much that for me. I landed first and foremost in Pasadena when I was out in Southern California, and it was almost too big of a city, which kind of sounds crazy, but I made my way slowly to the ocean, and the South Bay was really where I found that kind of homey coziness of a city, and still tons of movement, tons of great businesses popping up, and great food, and very active community. And I mean, you're by the water, right?
Cool. What was the time period when you decided, it's time to kind of leave the corporate life and start your own thing?
So I feel like I've left corporate America a couple times before I decided. Third time is a charm. I was always working in the events world. I ended up working for some nonprofits, but it became an office job very easily. Like you kind of have this dream of it being outdoors all the time and all these fun events, but really there's a big chunk that you have to, no matter what, do some admin stuff and some computer stuff. And I just felt on, the third time I got a corporate job, I was in these cubicles all day, every day. And my big thing is just the freedom of time. I don't always work well from 9 to 5. I work well from 8 to 11, and then again from 6 to 10 p.m. And it's like this weird thing, but could be a millennial thing too. But I just craved having random Tuesdays off, and I was fine working weekends at my own pace, and I was okay putting more hours in a day. It was just I wanted it to be on my own time. So after working 2 years in kind of an office setting in the events world for a nonprofit, I was like, you know what? There's never going to be the perfect time to make this leap. I'm never going to have enough money. I'm never going to have the perfect house or whatever it is, but I'm going to do it. And I don't want to look back 10 years from now saying, oh man, I wish I would have done that sooner. So I did. I just kind of, actually a year ago in October, that was finally, pulled the cord and said, this is it. This is my last time. I'm becoming an entrepreneur for the rest of my life. And I figured I have to trust that I have a talent and that people will want to hire me for their wedding. And it is. As soon as I quit, clients kind of started rolling in, and there's this, whole attraction thing, putting it out to the universe, whatever you want to call it, where you just have to trust that you're going to put the work in and people will come. And so it's been a year of amazing, not having to get a side job or getting a part-time job or a full-time job. It's been enough that I can fully live off of being an entrepreneur.
Nice. So what were some of like the fears you can remember if you go back a year ago? What were some of your fears that you had to work through?
I mean, of course, money, right? It's the first thing, financial stuff. How I kind of worked through that was really just keeping my expenses low. So we, you may have heard, moved on to a boat more recently.
We're going to get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. Which actually, believe it or not, in Southern California is less expensive than living in an apartment. And just not a lot of overhead for a wedding planner. I don't rent anything. So yeah, keeping expenses low and being a wedding planner, I don't rent any equipment, so I didn't have to buy anything. I really is just a service base for the most part. I do have now some programs online and stuff that I use, but so fear of not having enough money, of course. So keeping expenses low, but then again, I never ran out. It was this weird concept of just saying I have to trust that it's going to come in, and it did. Time after time, clients came at the right time, and live off the deposit, until the wedding comes around, right? It's the game. And I think there's also always this fear of being like, am I a fake? Like, am I good enough to be out in the world and doing this full time? Like, when you have people that have been doing this for decades, and here you are coming into this industry that's, kind of saturated, but there's a lot of people that offer amazing services. But am I good enough? Like, am I legit? Is someone going to come up to me and be like, you don't have a design background. Like, who are you to say you're a wedding planner? Like, no, I do my own thing. And I think part of it is just I have to be confident in saying, like, this is what I'm good at. If you're not the right fit for me, I'll let you know. And just to make sure our visions are aligned, and I'm not the right fit for you, I'll let you know. So, I think those are the two main things. And how to stay motivated on your own too.
Yes.
Like, right? Like we talked about earlier, offline, just networking and community, and hanging out with other entrepreneurs, and really having an accountability partner too, in some sense, and just having a group of people to make sure that you're still on track and you're not just hanging out at home, doing nothing, eating donuts. We're not. Like, we have days off, but we're working all the time.
Yeah, entrepreneurship can be a lonely life.
Yeah. Oh, you hear about that all the time. And depression, real depression can happen through entrepreneurship. So it's important to stay connected.
Okay. So you spoke about kind of the market, and our market, creatives, the wedding industry being very crowded and being very saturated. So what do you do to kind of keep yourself kind of above the saturation point and really let yourself and your company be noticeable and different?
Yeah. It took me 5 years, but I found my niche market, and I think I really kind of honed in on who my ideal client was. And my ideal client is a very specific type of person. And we talked about earlier, like that backpacker, that hiker, that adventurous couple. They're willing to go out to the desert. They're willing to go out to the mountains for their wedding, and it's not for everyone, and it's this very specific type of person. And so my website is full of that person, or my Instagram feed is very much tailored. That's who I'm speaking to. And granted, not to say that I don't do a few other types. Like, I still think that personality of my ideal client shines through all of my clients. But some of them do have corporate jobs. They're not hiking their whole life. But I think getting very specific and saying to the online world, like, hey, I'm talking to you specifically, you backpacker, you yogi, or this is who I am, this is what I do. And I don't try to do everything. Like, I don't do hotel weddings, and I'm leaving that for the professionals that are really good at those types of weddings. So I think, continuously targeting my very specific ideal person. And granted, I was thinking about this on the ride over here, and I was like, a lot of people think I do boho weddings. And yes, I do, but boho, just like rustic, is a trend. Right. And I think I have to remind myself too, is like, that trend will come and go. And once the TP phase is over, my core identity is really just the overall outdoor setting. And the type of person that it's attracted to the outdoor setting, whether next thing might be, I don't know, some cool geometric sculpture, we'll move into that trend. But I think for the most part, what sticks with me and my brand is just that outdoor, off the grid kind of setting. So I think staying true to that, and not trying to do everything, just not trying to tap into all of it. It's just not, I won't stand out that way. So I dress sometimes very boho and live the lifestyle.
Yes. I love your website. I love the video that you have at the beginning. So right when you go to your website, you see what it is, you get a good picture, it's done. So well done with that.
Thank you. Yeah, we rebranded last year, and props to Dennis Dang, who did that. He was awesome. And what's funny is that at first I was like, oh gosh, the website, we don't show any details of the wedding. But then I was thinking back, I was like, my client doesn't care so much about the details. They want the experience. And I think the video, and I know you did that too, we talked about recently. I mean, it's genius, because you show the person, the client, you say, land on my page, and here's the experience. And you kind of feel like you're there. Like, for yours, you're there. It's you. And you see what you're doing at the DJ table. And for me, it's like, gosh, for them, it's like they're a guest at this particular wedding, and it's outdoors, and you see the desert, and you see a snapshot of the table setting, but really it's like, wow, this is the party and the wedding that I want to have. It's this full experience.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Good. Well done.
Thank
cool.
you.
So if you're thinking, and we're talking about creative professionals in general, what are some characteristics or like what are some important factors for them to consider when they want to be successful in today's environment? What's important for a creative to know and to follow in order to be successful in the environment today?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think on a personality level, being able to be self-motivated, it's great to have community and stuff, but at the end of the day, you are responsible for your successes and your failures. So not to let failures, don't take them so personally, like be proud of your successes, but also be proud of your failures because you will learn from those. Don't let it bring you down, and just, but be self-motivated and really, be driven on your own, and then you can kind of be fueled by others in the community too. I think another thing is not to be afraid of competition. I think there's a big movement right now that's community over competition, but not to see competition as a bad thing, but to see it really as a way that it can be useful to you and help you grow, but also how you can help them grow. And again, like going back to differentiating yourself and standing out in this like very saturated market, but like find who you are and who your ideal client is, and then stand out that way. But don't bring down the competition. Use them in a way to your advantage, befriend them, and share clients. Like I do this with a lot of other planners where, well, sometimes we even assist each other on weddings because A, I think I can learn a lot from another planner, and B, it's nice to work at a venue sometimes that you may not have worked at, and this gives you a chance to kind of get a preview of that venue. But we talk shop all the time, and we say like how different we are in our own ways, but also encourage each other and support each other and share leads. Like sometimes, gosh, that planner's booked, but she's very similar to me, so we're very similar, so she might share that lead with me. And I've had that happen this year a lot, and it's been amazing. And like I love bumping into the competition. But yeah, and I think self-motivation, not being afraid of the competition, and being a nice person. Like I know this is weird, right? Like,
yes.
Do we forget this sometimes? I think not to forget, just to be nice. Like I one of the biggest feedback pieces I get from vendors is like they love working with me because I'm nice, and sometimes I'm like, oh, it's because I'm Canadian. But just being nice, like those people, I go out of my way to help other vendors at weddings when I can, when there's time, but they have done so much in return for me and helping me in different situations. But that's how your client wants to be represented, by nice vendors as well. Like you are speaking on behalf of the client throughout the whole process. So yeah, not forgetting to be nice in all of it, right?
Exactly. The golden rule.
The golden rule.
Yes. So you spoke about self-motivation. What do you do kind of on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis to keep yourself motivated?
I'm big on affirmations. So I do some affirmations in the morning, whether it's financial affirmations or just like motivation affirmations, like, okay, we're doing this. This is a great week. This is making this happen. And goal setting. I think goal setting is huge. I love goal setting, of course, at the beginning of the year. It sets the tone, but the beginning of the week is nice to go back and kind of, I do beginning of the month, let's say, kind of just overall goals for the month. And then every week kind of breaking that down, and saying, okay, well, this week I'm really going to focus on, I don't know, gosh, like sometimes it's finances, like taking a look at my past finances. Where do I need, what type of clients do I need to book more of, or how many venue tours am I going to do this month? Like which are the most important ones that align with who my ideal client is and what they might be interested in seeing me blog about or post about. So yeah, goal setting is huge. And I feel it's just really fun too. And you can share your goals with other creatives and say like, hey guys, this is what I'm working on. Hold me accountable. Like remind me about these next month and like see how I'm doing. So we'll have to talk about that.
So speaking about goals then, is there a goal that you maybe set for the year, at the time of this podcast where maybe like 3/4 of the way through the year, time's flying, that maybe you've achieved already or you're close to, or what's like one of the hot ones for you besides getting married?
Oh my gosh, I know. Yes, my word. So I also have a word for every year. My word for 2017 was team. And I guess part one of that was trying to decipher what that looked like for me, what team looked like for me. And it's been a struggle, I have to be honest. It's been hard to break that down and say like, what do I need to help the business grow? But what do I need in terms of support? Like where is my time best spent? And do I need to outsource some stuff to a team member, or do I just need assistance day of? Or so that was kind of just overall looking at that this year. And I think in terms of accomplishing on the team side, I do have an associate that has grown definitely from last year, and she's more confident and able to make decisions on wedding day. She still is assisting me on the wedding day, but eventually the goal is to grow her into like an associate that can take on her own weddings. And then I've also teamed up with another planner who's kind of just starting her business out, and we're very similar, but I love that she kind of reached out, and I'm hoping to have her as a lead planner for me until she's ready to branch out on her own, until she becomes too busy and too popular. But for now, I love kind of mentoring her, but also hearing from her experience on it. She's actually done a little more of the corporate side of events and stuff like that. So hearing some of her expertise on that end. So yeah, team was my big goal for this year. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but there's still always tons of work to do.
Always. Good. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. If you were to think back maybe and identify one, maybe two, like what was the turning point for your career?
Okay. So I guess for me, it was finding who my ideal client was. Last year, which really kind of happened last year, last May, not this past Memorial weekend, the one before, we did this big wedding out in Utah, and it was, we called it Wedding Cella. So it was like a 4-day, a wedding Cella experience. And it was the boho, the glamping, all of the above. It was everything I could have dreamed a wedding to ever be. And after that, although granted I was like exhausted, I was like, oh, that was a doozy. I loved everything about it. I looked back and I was like, wow, this is my ideal client. This is my ideal design. It's simple, minimalistic, but it uses all of like nature around it to kind of bring in the design aspect of it. It was a big party for 3 days. Like everything about it was exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I rebranded after that. I did everything based around this one wedding. So you see, it's the one plastered on my website. And it got a big feature on Green Wedding Shoes. It was like this 2-part series, and it was like huge. And and it's brought me the right clients. It really has. And so I was like, okay, this is a turning point. Like now I know who I am as a wedding planner, who I want my ideal client to be, the types of weddings we do. And so I kind of added, since that moment, because it was in Utah, I've added to my brand like destination as part of my branding. And so not only do we do local kind of outdoorsy bohemian weddings now, but we do destination. And so I was like, yeah, I am open to going and traveling a little bit further out of Los Angeles and Northern California and Joshua Tree to go out and try different states. So Utah and Colorado are kind of my on my list. But yeah, that was a big turning point.
Okay. Would you go to the Caribbean, Hawaii, Florida?
I can't say no to that. I can't say no. Okay, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny. We don't do a ton of beach weddings, but I feel like Hawaii has potential. I've never been personally. However, I feel like I could have like this really cool jungle side of things that I would like love to experience. Have you been to Hawaii?
Yes, a bunch of times. Going back in January. So I definitely think there's some opportunity for you in Hawaii. So we'll add that to the list.
Perfect. You'll have to scout some venues out for me.
Sure. All right. What is something that scares you?
A lot of things scare me.
Share a few with
us. Things. Okay, it scares me, but at the same time, it fuels me. How unpredictable this world and industry can be, right? Like you're nodding your head. It's terrifying. I do not know where I'll be next year, what I'll be doing, how well my business will be doing. But at the same time, it fuels me. It drives me to book more or to put myself out there more, but also to be like, hey, it could change. The wedding industry could totally change in a second, and we'll go with the flow, and we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll just take our boat and head out to Hawaii, and who knows what it's going to look like. Like people are doing e-courses now. Like that's the thing. Like it's crazy. I would have never thought 5 years ago that that's how entrepreneurs were really living, you know, but it's scary. At the end of the day, it's scary because we don't know what our paycheck's going to be. We don't know if we can afford our lifestyle. We don't know if business is still going to keep coming in, or if people are going to decide that, weddings are not a thing anymore. We're done. Now we're like, oh gosh, we have to accommodate and find another industry. But I'm open to it. I'm like so down to see where this goes. But yeah, it's also terrifying.
Yes, it is. Yes, you're preaching to the choir here. So if you could sit down with your 21-year-old yourself and share some advice, what would you share?
I feel like, granted, I kind of did this, but there's not much I was changed about my 21-year-old self. And I say this as humbly as someone could say this, but my 21-year-old self my 20-year-old self left Canada, drove out to California, and said, I'll figure it out. And I have to say, I encourage more people to do that as opposed to doing a full-on business plan. There's research that needs to be done when you are thinking of starting a business and researching the industry and seeing, where everyone else is at and what you would be good at and what your strengths and your weaknesses are. But spending years building a business plan and it could change the next day. You have to be flexible and you have to say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to try. And if I fail, I'm going to keep trying, or I'm going to change something about it, and I'm going to adjust. And I think being a little more flexible on life, and there's disasters that happen all the time. There's weird stuff happening with our planet right now, and life is very, very short. And I think just going with the flow and just doing it, just have an idea, try it out. I think part of it is I have FOMO, so fear of missing out. It's a serious disease. I really think it's serious. And I never ever want to look back in life when I'm 100, because I will live to 100. I'm determined. I don't want to look back and say man, I really regret not trying. I really wish I had started something, had it fail if it had to fail, but look back and knowing that I had tried. I really want to make sure that everyone who's listening to this, if you have an idea, try it out. If it fails, it fails, and you'll go on to the next idea. That's what entrepreneurs do. We just bounce to the next idea. Yes.
We fall down, we get back up. We fall down, we get back up. Nice. Exactly. Good advice. I will have to get to the little teleportation machine. So maybe share with us what's one new habit, that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that you want to share.
I'm bad at habits. I'm so bad because I know they're so good. It's so good to have habits. It's really so good. And I'm bad at them. But I have implemented, I think we talked earlier about affirmations.
Yes.
When I remember, I try to do at least a daily affirmation. And it doesn't, ideally it would be in the morning to, set the tone of the day. But it does sometimes happen midday and I see something on a sign or something else trigger. I'm like, oh, yes, that's perfect. And if I can take 2 minutes to just close my eyes and think and really visualize and start out with that affirmation, I think that just sets the tone and the mood and just that self-motivation again. That would be a habit I would encourage everyone to implement, whatever that looks like for you. But habits are tricky because I know successful people have really good habits, and it is hard. I would love to start the day out with a cup of warm lemon water and then a smoothie and then 30 minutes of cardio. It doesn't happen. It doesn't. I have coffee and then I'm onto the email stuff, but yeah, one day at a time.
All right. Well, affirmations, that's a good habit. There you go.
Yeah.
We'll take that. All right. So we're really into reading here. Mm-hmm. So is there one or more books that you've read? It can be this year, it could have been in your lifetime, that you definitely feel that people have to stop what they're doing right now and read it. It could be your favorite book from a couple of years ago, school, but just share with us some of your favorite books and books you think people should read right away.
Oh gosh, that's hard because it's the right away part that I'm oh, that's so tricky. But the first one that comes to mind is a more recent read of mine. It's called Setting the Table. And gosh, if I could remember the author, that'd be really helpful. I'm going to have to
have you link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Show notes.
Yeah. And it came from another wedding planner actually who encouraged me to read this. And it's about the restaurant industry, but it's more specifically about customer service. And I think a big part of anyone in the wedding industry that is getting started or is experienced, we're all about customer service. We're all about pleasing. And at the end of the day, we have a lot of similarities to the restaurant industry. And so anyway, the book goes into just training employees and things that they look for in a good associate and stuff like that. But yeah, customer service, man, it goes a long way. We got to be nice.
We do. It's an endangered species. We used to say good customer service is an endangered species.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. So fun fact about Gabby is you live on a boat. Tell us how that is. Tell us how that works. It's so cool.
Thank you. Yes, very fun fact. We we decided we were renting for a very long time in Southern California, and we're at this crossroad where we were like, well, can we buy or should we like travel the rest of our lives? That's, would love to do that. But reality keeps us and our businesses here for a little while longer. So my fiance, soon to be husband, used to live on a sailboat up in Ventura during his kind of college years and early working years. And he one day introduced me to actually like a YouTube vlog called SV Delos, which stands for Sailing Vessel Delos is the name of the boat. And we have now been following them for probably 2 or 3 years. They're traveling the world by sailboat, and it's amazing. And anyway, we were like, well, Chris, actually, I have to thank him, but he was like, what do you think if we bought a boat to live on? And I was like, well, that's crazy. That's just insane. Who does that? And a sailboat, I was like, it's too small. We have 2 dogs. It's like basically living in a basement the whole time. So he found not a sailboat, but he found called a trawler, and it's 42 feet long, and it's full on living room and 2-bedroom. I mean, nice. It looks, you would think I'm talking about a mega yacht, but it's really, I mean, it's not, it's old. It's 1973 for a boat, but boats just keep their value. And so long story short, we bought it in April, and everything that we own in our life is on this boat. We do not have a storage unit. We do not have a bed, a couch. Everything's built in. And we absolutely love it. I work from the boat. The dogs love it. We actually, just yesterday we bought a dinghy, which is like a small boat that can take us to and from Catalina Island once we're moored out there. Mm-hmm. We've gone to Catalina 3 times already. I mean, it's hilarious to think about. Like for me, it's just my daily life. But really, I think the big part of it, what I like about this lifestyle now is like, the minimalist lifestyle. We could get up and leave and travel the world and not worry about all these crazy possessions that we have. We save money, actually. Like once we bought the boat, our monthly fees, our monthly kind of rent fees for the marina are fairly small for Southern California. And I can work. It's like working out of an office, no problem. I connect to a hotspot. We don't have Wi-Fi, but it's okay. And just the overall lifestyle, like everyone's very laid back. We've met other people that live on their boats in the marina, and we're like, oh my gosh, people do this, and they've been doing it for years and years. And it's kind of the tiny house movement, right? Like it's this tiny home situation, and we'll do it for probably about 2 years. And then once we think about starting to have kids, I think we'll probably move back on land for a little while longer. And but we'll see where it takes us. We're open to the adventure, and living the adventure every day is kind of big for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm jealous. I want to live on a boat.
Yeah, we'll have yogurt.
For sure. I'm ready. Let's have dinner. All right. Well, we're kind of coming to a close now, but share with people how they can find you online and where you like to live on social media and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm big on Instagram, and you can follow me there at 'Cause We Can Events, and it's CAUSE, because I used to do events for causes, and so that's kind of how the name started, which is actually my post today is what I'm talking about. At 'Cause We Can Events. And then also you can check out some of my blogging, and I kind of post some of our past events and tips and tricks for wedding planning. If you're getting into that, if you're a vendor, feel free to comment on those posts too. But we're at www.causewecannevents.com, and the blog is on there. And I'm big on Instagram stories. I feel like that's been I don't do Twitter very well. I kind of forgot about Snapchat. But Instagram stories is fun. We're doing some behind the scenes today about our chat. Yes. So I love those.
I think took a little clip.
Yeah. Oh, good. But I feel like you can get to know the person, right, in a day-to-day life. But and then our boat life also is at MV Solstice. So Motor Vessel Solstice.
So you have an Instagram for the boat and for you. Like it.
Do.
The dogs too?
No. The dogs can be combined into one. I couldn't handle another one. I couldn't handle it.
Cool. I will say on your blog, you have really, really good, strong photography. So it's really nice that the vendors that took those photos, like I was checking out the blog a couple of days ago and those photos popped out. So really well done there as well. So
thank you.
Keep it up.
Work with some great people.
Yes, definitely. All right. So before we get out of here, Gabby, any last words of advice or tips or anything else to share before we kind of head our separate ways for the day?
Oh, I just say make sure your life is an adventure, whatever that looks like. Just I have this fear of life being boring and fear of missing out. So don't miss out. No regrets. Just whatever your adventure is, make sure to follow that.
Amen. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thanks, Amani.
And, keep in touch.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
All right. Cool.
So fun.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience Podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.